Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully and welcome back to the Resident Evil commentary. Now we are in the creepy basement. And since we're playing the original edition of the game, yeah, not that basement theme that we're going to be hearing. And for those of you not in the know, I'm talking about the alternative soundtrack by the fake deaf guy. And the reason why the basement soundtrack of that version is infamous in particular, well, it's primarily because of the fact that, again, on top of something that I suspect the ghostwriter made just to piss off his, contemporary who was basically stealing his work, yeah, to kind of give you an inkling of what the soundtrack, sounds like without actually having to play the track itself, it pretty much goes something along the lines of So, yeah, I think I might have described it before, but it's like if you put Chris Redfield in, like, giant clown shoes and he just dances around desperately trying to struggle. I mean, I will say, though, that, the original version is actually a little bit more tense, which is quite fitting considering what we're going to be seeing a fair bit later. Well, I mean, relatively speaking, because, what comes as a result of that end cutscene is, well, you know what, you'll see. Yeah, we'll just leave those zombies over there to their meal. But ostensibly, this entire part, all 24 minutes of it, is basically going to be, well, our last run of the mansion, so, yes, enjoy the sights, enjoy the music, because we ain't gonna see it again. And of course, this is also the area right at the end of the hallway, by which I mean, you know, right where Kenneth died. Oh dear, zombie. And that's what happens when you get your foot caught. You can stomp down on them and pretty much take them out, but I don't recommend you do that because it requires taking damage, which is no bueno if you want to conserve your health items. Ah yes, and now that we have access to the elevator, we can pretty much access, well, the rest of the second floor that we otherwise wouldn't have had access to. But of course, this room was locked from the other side, and of course, well, we couldn't have accessed it before, so as you can see, it's all sequential in the Resident Evil. Because, if we could explore this, you know, right in the beginning, then, well, we wouldn't have had things to do. So yeah, these are pretty much the rooms that Wesker wanted us to explore one last time. What a trustworthy fellow that he is. I suppose to kind of pad out for more time before I have to waste some of my tangents, yes indeed, it is currently October the 3rd, at time of recording, so yes indeed, we are now in Skully's Spookfest, and I believe today should actually be when part 1 of this commentary goes up, so yeah, now you know when this was recorded. Creepy music, scary, and yeah, as soon as I'm done with Resident Evil, I gotta get back to Tormented Souls, and, Kingdom Hearts 2, and Silent Hill Revelations, and a lot of other things that I need to do. So much to do. Oh god, it's weighing on my mind. With the creepy music. There we go. Yes. The lockpick. And what is our reward? Magnum bullets, which, until you kind of examine the item fully, I always used to think it was like a jar of jelly beans. At least in terms of the model quality, but then you examine it and it's like, oh, it's a chamber of bullets. But anyway, this is pretty much where our destination lies. A scrapbook. And these pretty much contain the newspaper clippings that were what influenced us to check out the area to begin with. Except for the fact that these shouldn't... well, actually, no, they should exist. Because it seems somebody had knowledge about the attacks and, was leading us here. I wonder. But it's also here where we begin to learn a little bit more about how someone is a traitor. But who is the traitor? We do not know. Because, yeah, it seems that somebody not only knew about Star's arrival, but in turn that, they have certain orders to, take care of them. And not in the do-re-mi-la-di-do-la-li take-him-outs-to-dinners kind of way. Is this... a mysterious door that you would not know about unless you moved the bookcase. Yeah, believe it or not, this is actually a room that a lot of people can actually wind up missing, but lo and behold, pay careful attention to your surroundings, and again, it is rather important as to why, you know, you take a look at pretty much any item that's highlighted by, well, not being pre-rendered, because if it isn't pre-rendered, then you know to interact with it. Good rule of game design, and, well, again, it just makes for common sense, really. And there's the heliport! Why Brad never thought to go there and wait rather than wasting fuel is anybody's guess, but I don't know, like, I guess maybe he might have been worried about... Actually, no, Brad would have found that, so why is he just flying around like a pussy? Oh, well, I guess I don't call him Chicken Heart for nothing, so... queeshed. In any case, while we fight around for more plot-essential items, it's time for some more trivia! And might as well just use some pointless ones for the time being. But yeah, you know that whole Jill sandwich scene, the infamous one where Barry Burton comes to save the day? Well, in the original version of that scene, Gelzer, Barry's original form, was gonna hold up the ceiling. Because, again, as per the Shinji Mikami treatment of the story, yeah, these guys were initially meant to be cyborgs, so... yeah, that kinda goes to show precisely where his sensibilities lie. In the action side of things, even though when he made The Evil Within, he was like, oh no, horror games are too action, even though I'm partially responsible for it with Resident Evil 4 being the best game ever, because you don't wanna know. He's quite the confused boy, it seems. Is, Mr. Mikami... Kami chameleon. And of course, here is our third objective. Not only do we have to get the 2 metal proofs, but we also need to get the Mo discs, because you got to have Mo discs. But yeah, those actually are rather important, because they pretty much... well, I mean, I'd say they are actually kind of required to unlock the good ending, but we'll find out a little bit later. It's ostensibly getting you passcodes to find one of our lost friends. Oh, yes, indeedy, I knew what it was like to have friends. Okay, enough randomness for the time being. Because I think it's about time that I actually talked about a certain subplot that, well, for a lot of people is actually something that was initially cut from Resident Evil 1, the original edition, but was restored in the remake. So yes, and let us delve into Lisa Trevor. Well, more specifically George Trevor, because, again, the George Trevor memoirs were basically a cut plot element about not only the guy who designed the mansion, but in turn also his involvement with the head of the Umbrella Corporation, Oswald Spencer. So, yeah, I'll pretty much just give you the brass tacks on it. It was, again, I think it was written by Kenichi Iwao and I hope I'm remembering his name right, but, Yasuyuki Sawa, or Saga, I think. But yeah, basically it was about the man, George Trevor, who designed the mansion. He was invited by Oswald Spencer to have a little bit of dinner with him and his lovely family. So of course he brought Jessica and his daughter Lisa Trevor in tow, and well, they had a nice meal, but Jessica and Lisa had to leave to see Auntie M! Auntie M! So of course they left the mansion, and while George was off having a lovely meal, yeah, it seems that Oswald wanted to design the mansion with plenty of tricks and traps, no doubt being a very practical joke kind of thing. Except when George went to leave the mansion after not hearing from his wife and daughter in a while, yeah, Oswald was basically like, are you sure you don't want to reconsider? But of course, since he was concerned about his wife and daughter, as any man should be, yeah, he basically got knocked out, locked in prison, and was, well, basically wondering, what the fuck? So again, I mean, he was, you know, brought meals and food in his prison cell, but after eventually escaping and making his way down to the tunnels, yeah, he soon learned that his wife and daughter were killed and, well, presumed to be experimented on. Which does kinda make one wonder about the child zombie earlier. Yeah, that's creepy. Oh my god. Oh my god! Is that Lisa Trevor? Oh, it's just a regular zombie. Yes, as I suspected. No idea why they big up that scene for the massive zombie, but anyway. Back to the subplot at hand. Basically, after finding out that his wife and daughter were killed and experimented on by Umbrella, yeah, he basically found his way down, well, again, you might remember that little tombstone that we found earlier. Yeah, basically that was where George Trevor found himself falling down, mind unsound. And basically he found his own tombstone, courtesy of Oswald Spencer, and yeah, that is where the man eventually died of malnutrition, writing his memoirs and hoping that nobody would get caught in the same situation. Now, this was cut out of the original game. I'm not really too sure why. Space limitations, time crunch? I'm not too sure, but I mean, it does kind of make me wonder about certain elements that I'll probably get into a little bit later, but yeah, this was eventually re-included for the remake, and yeah, it changed up a little bit because Lisa Trevor in the remake is very much alive and made into a sort of pseudo-nemesis gameplay element. And I think was also included in the 2021 Resident Evil movie. I mean, I still haven't seen that, mind you, but I mean, I do remember seeing some screenshots of the makeup effects, and they look pretty snazzy. Get the fuck out of my way, Hunter! But yeah, I really don't know how they would have adapted that, but anyway, it makes for an interesting thing, although to kind of cover my thoughts on the remake about the Lisa Trevor subplot, it's interesting, but kind of gets resolved in a bit of a, I don't know, kind of like a offhanded way. Like, I mean, the whole thing sort of happens, you have the characters go, huh, well that was weird, and then just go back to the plot as if nothing happened. I mean, I suppose it makes sense because the characters do have more important things to worry about, but all the same, it does kind of make the plot seem a little bit, well, a little bit more arbitrary than I think it should be, at least from an emotional standpoint. Again, I suppose that probably comes from the fact that you don't have any characters related to Lisa, and it probably could have done with an additional game mode of maybe playing as George Trevor to try and solve puzzles before eventually giving up and dying, I guess? I don't know, I mean, like, this wasn't the days before DLC, but, you know, you would have thought when the remake was new, they would have had the additional game mode, but I guess that's neither here nor there in this case. But I suppose to talk about what I was thinking that George Trevor became, or at least where he spawned from, there was initially a cut character from the Ewell story known as the Red-Haired Man. He was actually mentioned in the George Trevor diaries, so again, I guess he might have either been a separate character or at least maybe something of a support character. But I mean, either way, I think maybe it was meant to exist less as a mythos thing, but kind of a way to give the player puzzle solutions, because I mean, he did bring up in Trevor's diary, you know, specific things like, you know, the shotgun puzzle with the ceiling trap, or, you know, like the wooden plank puzzle that, you know, used to replace the wooden proof with the other one. So, yeah, who knows. I get the impression that he might have actually been a converted remnant of the good scientist character from Mikami's story, but yeah, I can't really say for certain. Like, I mean, there were actually a lot of elements of Resident Evil that do get changed around a fair bit. I mean, Resident Evil 1.5 to Resident Evil 2 is a prime example of that, and even, like, several games later in the series, there are still elements that you could see from the original games that somehow made their way into much later entries in the series. What is this? Okay, that should be good. We see a moose, and of course, we see somebody receiving some orders from Umbrella. X-Day is approaching. So yeah, basically, these were the instructions that were given. Lure stars, get them killed, obtain data with the battles of the BOWs, and of course, collecting the embryos and, well, basically collecting data, destroy lab, and, well, get the fuck out of there, basically. So, yeah, they are one of the elite stars unit to basically play guinea pig to a lot of the bioweapons. Hunters, zombies, Cerberus dogs, Neptunes, giant spiders. Yeah, all of this was basically a training exercise for their bioweapons, which is incredibly creepy and quite scary. Only the best will survive. So now we gotta consider our survivors. There's Jill, there's Captain Wesker, Barry, we don't know where Chris is, but maybe this Terminator Moose will tell us where he is. Dun 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 dun. But yeah, this is pretty much where we get our red gem. Replaced by a slightly more pain-in-the-ass puzzle in the remake, but... Queesht. We got what we need, so let's get at all. Personally, I think the traitor is Rebecca. That hoe ain't loyal, and she's been missing ever since. I don't know why I'm doing a lisp, but fuck it, I'm not talking like that anymore. Anyway, let's continue on with our adventures. Now that we have, well, pretty much the last thing we need. And the red gem is actually rather important if you want to get the best weapon in the game, because it is pretty freaking sweet. Yes, no longer will we have to worry about grenade launchers or shotguns when we have this that we'll see later in the game. Don't worry, Hunter, you can just wait out there for your compatriots, awaiting your meal patiently. There we go. Back into the safety. It is a really serene pace. I just love the save room theme of this game. I mean, not my favourite, mind you. Like, I mean, if we're talking save room themes, nothing gets better than Code Veronica in my eyes, but... it's peaceful. And again, I do kind of recommend you save your Magnum rounds at least until the final area of the game where you can really cut loose, although... yeah, the Magnum does kind of have that similar problem that, again, most ultimate powerful weapons, you know, in your BFG kind of way, that you work so hard to get it, you want to conserve it for the moments that matter the most, that you barely end up using it. Which I suppose also comes as a bit of a catch-22 in game design. Like, I mean, you have this ultimate break the weapon kind of game, but you don't want to use it. I mean, I suppose Resident Evil does kind of skirt that with the unlimited rocket launcher that you usually get by beating the game under 3 hours, or... you know, basically completing all the... is it A rank or S rank in this game? Basically completing the requirements that you need to get it. So, I mean, again, I guess having your, here's a weapon, here's unlimited ammo, have fun kind of thing is worth in some eyes, but... I don't know. In the case of the Magnum, it's a very fun weapon to use, but at the same time, you don't want to use it on the off chance that you're just sort of wasting it. Oh, well, I mean, I suppose you'll probably wind up using it more as your pseudo boss buster slash elite weapon, you know, using it against hunters or some of the other powerful brutes that you'll face later on. But anyway, as soon as we get a Magnum and as soon as we have like another bit of item management, the game, yeah, that'll pretty much be us, and we can finally move on to greener pastures, by which I mean a new area, which will give us new things to talk about, presumably. There we go. We insert the red Chaos Emerald. And what shall be our reward? Yes. We have this. I don't think it's the same model as Barry's gun, because I think his is actually a modified, I think it's a modified Magnum? I can't quite remember what, specific gun he uses, but yes, we get the Colt 45. There we go. Anyway, let's do some editing magic and sort out some items. I don't know why I didn't edit this down more, but... whatever, laziness. Although laziness for me, in the editing thing, more work for me in the sense that I have to say things that word-mouth brain that can make interesting YouTube watching thing. Oh yes, that's why you come to the Solidus-Skully for intellectual commentary and joke-making things. Oh, dearie me. Actually, I mean, thinking back to, you know, the whole Gelzer thing when he was holding up the ceiling trap, I do wonder what other elements would have been included in, like, earlier versions of Resident Evil, because, I mean, I believe the initial setup was that you were gonna have, like, 4 playable characters, I suppose each with different strength and stats, so again, you would have been able to play as, Gelzer slash Barry full-time, as you would have been able to with, Dewey or Rebecca. Although I think Dewey was initially gonna be, like, an unlockable character, so again, who knows how that would have been. I think, like, a lot of trivia pages describe him as basically being more of, like, kind of similar to Tofu from Resident Evil 2 when you unlock his game mode, so... who knows, maybe it would have been a bit sillier in tone, or maybe it would have been kind of like the UFO ending of Silent Hill games, where this is our serious horror game, but here's a fun mode to just enjoy yourself with. I mean, although I never played the game, I did hear in Dino Crisis, actually, I think one of the support characters basically took up a very similar role as Dewey, so maybe that's where that idea eventually went. You know, in a similar way that Resident Evil with swords eventually went off to Resident Evil Sengoku, that eventually became Onimusha for the PS2. I don't know, it's kind of weird how Capcom just took ideas from their previous games and translated them into new IPs, which is something I don't really see them doing much anymore. Then again, I suppose it was probably a bit easier to do on the PS1, PS2 days when, you know, yearly development cycles were a little bit easier to pull off and probably didn't require as heavy a budget than what a lot of games of today cost with graphical things and actors and whatevers. Anyway, yeah, this is basically just a bit of a reach-around puzzle. We finally have a battery for the lift, so basically we're gonna go around, put the battery in the lift, come back, use the crank, use the lift again, and then we'll finally have access to the catacombs. By which I mean the caves of Androsani. Actually, there's another thing I could talk about in terms of trivia and cut enemies. Yeah, there were, you know, with those little snake enemies, and I'm not talking about the yawn. Yeah, the game was initially going to have a sea snake enemy that was, I think, eventually became the worm boss fight in the Code Veronica. So yeah, I mean, I suppose maybe it might have been split as both the Gravedigger and the worm boss fight in Code Veronica as well. So yes, curious. Although that being said, I do wonder where you would have fought the thing. I'm guessing probably wouldn't have been underwater or anything. I don't know, it just kind of had me thinking, because, I mean, Devil May Cry 2 had a sea snake enemy, and, yeah, I'm wondering if that maybe could have been a spin-off variant of it as well? I don't know, because, I mean, in the Resident Evil 4 concept art, like, I mean, you see, like, a bit of artwork for the cancelled sea snake enemy, so it does make me wonder if, maybe that might have been in the original Resident Evil 4 that became Devil May Cry. I'm not really sure what to make heads or tails of it, really, but, you know, I think it would have been interesting. Although it probably would have wound up being similar to the Salamander boss fight from Code Veronica itself, where it electrifies the pool, you go ow, you're completely fucked! And sadly, no, despite using the crank, no, you do not get that CGI thing, unless the footage makes a liar out of me. Yep, no CG. But anyway, with the floodgates closed, now we can finally access the caverns. You know, which I will admit, like, I mean, Resident Evil 1 I wouldn't say is really the scariest game around, although it does have its moments of atmosphere here and there, and I think the caverns, at least in terms of soundtrack, might actually kind of take the cake as one of the creepiest areas in the game. It's, ooh, quite a bit spooky. Sends a chill down my spine. Even though it's, well, we're currently getting closer to the summer months in Australia, and, oh boy, the temperature should be getting, pretty hot. Well, that should about do us for this part, so, on that note, I am Solidus-Skully. Keep it within the confines of the musical genre nu metal. And next time on the Resident Evil commentary, well, we will enter the caverns. Be ready, Jill, survive the horror, and descend into danger.